Our announcements this morning, we have two announcements, both of which will be explained by congregants coming forward to the pulpit. First is Jo Blair, and she will be followed by Hillary Rosen.
Thank you, Joseph. I'm Jo Blair, a member of the Chinook Indian Nation, and I co-facilitate Native Connections Action Group with Maria Menz. Native Connections Action Group is entering our 9th year as a social and environmental justice action team here at QUUF. Over the years, many of you have supported our projects, including raising funds for Standing Rock water protectors and completing the Cheech-Mahan Trail, which identifies and explains the slalom history of Port Townsend. This year, we launched an effort to help Port Townsend and Chimacum schools implement the Washington State mandated since time immemorial curriculum. This project aligns with our first goal, which is to educate ourselves and the community about the Native history of this place. Using a list compiled by the Jamestown Slalom Library, we are raising funds to purchase books to supplement that curriculum. Besides the tribe's Cheech-Mahan Trail booklet, which I'm sure you've all seen, teachers need materials at various grade levels that align with the curriculum standards and focus on local tribes. Today, I'm here to thank you instead of plead for donations. This week, we matched our $800 donation from an anonymous donor and exceeded it by $190, so yay. If you have a check ready to mail, don't tear it up, please. Teachers can use multiple copies of the same book in classrooms for classroom sets. Please write your check to QUUF and in the memo line write NCAG Book Project. And you can mail it or drop it off at QUUF. Hayu Masi. Many thanks.
Hi, everybody. My name is Hillary Rosen, and I'm a member of the Healthy Community team. We are hosting a series of conversation circles that we hold in the den from 11-ish to 12-ish. What happens is we'll give everybody time to get coffee after the sermon and say hi to your friends, and I'll come through with a bell, and if you're interested in joining us, we just go over to the den. These conversation circles are an opportunity to connect face-to-face and discuss topics that are important to us right now. We have a couple of questions that we use as prompts, one from the sermon, and then one based on the cottage meetings that we had during the summer, so questions that popped up as relevant and interesting for us. And please join us and engage with your QUF members, neighbors, and in recreating community. Thanks very much.
Thank you very much. We'll now be sharing our joys and sorrows, recognizing that our personal joys and sorrows are only a fragment of the joys and sorrows of the larger community of life. And thus, we are going to light this first candle, thinking in particular of all the unhoused people who exist in Jefferson County. And now this is the time where we would normally do joys and sorrows from messages received from the congregation. There were none sent this holiday week. That's not surprising, but if you want to get back into the joys and sorrows groove, the basic method is if you have a joy or sorrow that you'd like to share, please email it to its special email, joys and sorrows, plural, at quuf.org. and it's very appreciated if those messages come in no later than noon on the Friday of the right before this Sunday. And so now we'll light the final candle, thinking of all those joys and sorrows among us that have been left unexpressed or are perhaps too tender to put into words. I invite you now into a time of silent meditation. I just realized sitting there in my silent meditation that it is fantastic to be sharing space with John Lennon, Yoko Ono, and the Beatles today. So fantastic. And also sharing the space with the poet James Broughton. During our responsive reading this morning, we gave voice as one congregation to a short poem by James Broughton. He was an avant-garde filmmaker, poet, and was known to friends and family and his fans by the nickname Big Joy, which also serves as the title for a film documentary about Broughton. And I'll tell you, Big Joy is certainly a nickname to aspire to, is it not? And so I wanted to give you, just let you know that his rough-hewn gravestone is a half a mile, if that, from this sanctuary. It's nestled under a cluster of tall bushes at Laurel Grove Cemetery. I encourage you all to go search it out. I'm happy to kind of give you rough directions if you want, but I'm not going to tell you exactly where it is, so you have to look around. It serves as a pilgrimage site for filmmakers, for poets, lovers of life, and connoisseurs of trying to live a joyful life. I made a pilgrimage there this week to the grave. It was very early in the morning in preparation for this service. Because I think one of the things that we need to do as a congregation is to really realize that joy, experiencing human joy in real time, is a big, big part of living a healthy spiritual life. I visited Big Joy's grave many, many times. And on this most recent visit, one of the things I noticed most was something both mundane and miraculous, and that was lichen on the top of his gravestone. Now, for those of you who need a memo from biology, lichen is one of those amazing organisms that uses two different organisms, algae and fungi, to make itself. So it's an incredibly dynamic, incredibly interesting organism on Earth. And I love the metaphor of coming together to create life. Very important. One of the other things I noticed when I made this pilgrimage to the gravestone was that the natural forces of weather, wind and rain and snow and sleet, are eroding the poems that are engraved on the gravestone, reminding the people who are alive here and now that we should read the world while we have time to do so, and we should also savor our gifts of time. And that said, most meaningful to me on the gravestone are the three words above James Broughton's name: adventure, not predicament. And so this poem is called The Gardener of Eden, not the Garden of Eden, the Gardener of Eden. This is engraved in the stone. It was illuminated by early winter sunlight. I touched the words with both my eyes and my fingertips. And now I have the great gift of bringing a third sense to this sanctuary, and that is sound. The Gardener of Eden by James Broughton. I'm the old dreamer who never sleeps. I'm the timekeeper of the timeless dance. I preserve the long rhythms of the earth and fertilize the rounds of desire. In my evergreen arboretum, I raise flowering hopes for the world. I plant seeds of perennial affection and wait for their passionate bloom. Would you welcome that sight if you saw it? Revalue the view you have lost? Could you wake to the innocent morning and follow the risks of your heart? Every day, I grow a dream in my garden where the beds are laid out for love. When will you come to embrace it, enjoy and join in the joy of the dance? And so may we all become gardeners of Eden. And our special music this morning, the aforementioned Beatles, Here Comes the Sun, sung by Doug Rodgers and Pat on piano.
Here comes the sun, do-do-do-do. Here comes the sun, and I say, it's all right. Little darling, it's been a long, cold, lonely winter. Little darling, it seems like years since it's been here. Here comes the sun, here comes the sun, and I say, it's all right. Little darling, the smiles returning to their faces. Little darling, it seems like years since it's been here. Here comes the sun, here comes the sun, and I say, it's all right. Sun, 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 here it comes. Sun, 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 here it comes. Sun, 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 here it comes. Little darling, I feel that ice is slowly melting. Little darling, it seems like years since it's been clear. Here comes the sun, here comes the sun, and I say, it's all right. Here comes the sun, here comes the sun, it's all right. It's all right.
That is so fantastic. Could I have a show of hands of anyone who has ever sung a Beatles song in the shower or the car on a long road trip? Yeah, there you go. We're right back there. Thank you, Doug. Thank you, Pat. That was fantastic. As we begin the sermon this morning, I want to give a big, deep, long bow to Reverend Kate Kinney for helping orchestrate the presence of a large canvas labyrinth here in the sanctuary on New Year's Eve. And it's also here through much of the first week of the year. For those of you who engaged in the labyrinth, I hope your personal experience was deep. I hope it was profound. I hope it was useful. And I hope it was fun. And on New Year's Eve, I came here with my family to walk the labyrinth. I removed my shoes, I hung my coat, and I sat in a chair in the foyer, spending some quiet time trying to settle my mind and trying to settle my heart before I entered into the labyrinth. In the foyer was this bowl of water, and there was a stack of dissolvable paper squares, and there were a few pencils. And there was a sign there that invited folks to write down something that they wanted to let go of or to release from the previous year. And I have to admit here among friends that I love those kinds of rituals. And after some careful consideration, I neatly printed a single word, and that was impatience. And I placed the word on the square in big, bold letters. And then I placed the paper on top of the surface of the water, and it floated there for a little bit. Then it began to curl. And then all of a sudden, poof, the graphite from the word lifted from the paper and created this little swirly cloud of the word. And I got to literally watch impatience disappear. What a New Year's gift, eh? And I noted that the water that was used for this ritual was a bit cloudy. And at the bottom of the bowl were all these squares of dissolving paper. And I intuited that the people moving through the labyrinth inside this sanctuary had also ritually released something from the previous year. We were all walking away from a fault or a shortcoming, and by extension, we were walking toward an intention. So I entered the sanctuary. I saw this immense canvas labyrinth, literally went from post to post and covering the floor. And these small votive candles defined the outer circle, and it provided this incredibly warm light. And a harpist was seated up here playing live harp music. Now, there were a dozen or so masked people moving through this ancient spiritual tool at varying speeds, varying styles, in different directions, because the labyrinth has you going all over the place. And each person was at a different stage in the journey, and we were all on the journey. Now, the ages, my estimate, ranged from mid-20s to the deep 80s. There was someone in the center of the labyrinth when I got involved who was lying down on the floor looking up. And even in that dim light with masks on, I recognized many of the people who were walking the labyrinth, and later, upon reflection, I realized that the labyrinth here in this sanctuary on New Year's Eve contained within this beautiful frame of soft light young adults and elders, men and women and non-binary people, queer folks, a heterosexual couple, at least one who had been married for decades, devout humanists fighting for freedom of speech, committed environmentalists. They were passionate and fierce defenders of social justice. And we were all moving together in an ancient pattern. We were remaining silent. We were accompanied by harp music and farting. It's true. At one point, one of the pilgrims on the path passed audible gas with each step, sounding out literally the oldest laugh line in human history. I absolutely loved it. Behind my mask, this huge smile bloomed because, of course, I thought, you don't get the harp music without the farting. I think that is something we could all take home with us. You don't get the harp music without the farting. Now, I soon discovered that when labyrinth walkers met face to face on the same path, one silently and respectfully moved aside so that the other could continue on their journey. And at some point, I took my glasses off. I am incredibly nearsighted, and I feel very vulnerable without my glasses, but I could see well enough to continue moving toward the center of the labyrinth. And here is my tender memo to you. Tears were just streaming down my face. Moving inside that labyrinth with the words, or the word, impatience released in a graphite cloud, prayerfully moving away from a year and toward another with a diverse group of people inside a candlelit sanctuary at a Unitarian Universalist fellowship, I felt deep, deep connection. And connection is a particular focus of the principles of Unitarian Universalism. As stated in our concluding principle number 7, respect for the interdependent, not interconnected, interdependent web of all existence of which we are a part. Now consider those two phrases, interdependent web, all existence, which essentially means that you, your discrete individual self, your little ego, can find a connecting path, however slender, however tenuous, to anything else in the universe. It's sort of like a cosmic version of that parlor game, 6 Degrees of Kevin Bacon, which asserts that within 6 moves, you can count any Hollywood actor who has ever lived through their film work to the actor Kevin Bacon. Now, for those of you who need a briefing, Kevin Bacon was an actor, is an actor, who's appeared in lots and lots of movies, became a heartthrob in the 1980s with the teenage drive against religion movie called Footloose. And so here it is. Every actor in Hollywood has what's called a Bacon number. Kevin Bacon, of course, is 0. Anyone who has worked directly with Kevin Bacon on a film has a score of 1, and so on. And because miracles occur, there is an astounding website I encourage you to visit, no doubt conceived of and executed by a movie-loving humanist called the Oracle of Bacon. Now, the Oracle of Bacon will determine any actor's Bacon number, as well as provide the connections, how one got to that number. So, for example, the great comedian of silent films, Charlie Chaplin, who was in the movie Brother, Can You Spare a Dime with James Cagney, who was in Ragtime with Elizabeth McGovern, who was in She's Having a Baby with, bingo, Kevin Bacon. So Charlie Chaplin, who was born in 1889, the same year that Grover Cleveland served as president, has a Bacon number of 3. Now, the highest score, of course, is 6. No one has ever found 7. And let me tell you, I played around with the Oracle of Bacon for quite some time, and I never got past 3. Even Lassie has a Bacon number of 3. Now, on first glance, this seems astounding, though in reality, it is fundamentally math that proves how connected we really are. And to hammer this particular nail just one more time, I have an Abraham Lincoln number of 5. Because I have shaken the hand of a person who has shaken the hand of a person who has shaken the hand of a person who has shaken the hand of a person who shook the hand of Abraham Lincoln. Because back in the 1950s, a man who was dressed like Abraham Lincoln visited a grammar school in Chicago and shook hands with all the grammar school kids. And that person served as a connecting node for the shaking the hand, shaking the hand, shaking the hand lineage. and that Abraham Lincoln, the guy in the 1950s, shook hands with my friend George. And George and I have shaken hands many times. And so by virtue of being here together both in this sanctuary and online this morning, you have a Lincoln number of 6. And if anyone here has a Lincoln number of 4 or lower, please, I would like to shake your hand so I can go down to a 5. And so we get it. We get it. The interdependent web of all existence, undeniable truth, correct? It is an undeniable fact that we, by our very existence, we're in the web. There's no escaping that existential fact. And to take it one step further and farther, the independent web, per se, is not two-dimensional and flat. It is rather multi-dimensional, shooting off in all directions, backwards and forwards in time. So the next time you hear that Crosby, Stills, and Nash song, actually they perform the Joni Mitchell song, Woodstock, and they get to that rousing chorus, which you've also no doubt sung in the shower or the car, we are stardust, we are golden, billion-year-old carbon. We are stardust, we are golden, billion-year-old carbon. And I have to say, before doing this sermon, I had no idea that billion-year-old carbon was one of the lyrics. As scientist and writer David Hamilton states in his article, you are made of stardust. The basic components of everything within you and around you were made in a star. And you are deeply connected to all of it. Now, he explains in layman's terms that the lives and deaths of stars, the explosions, the vast scattering of elements, and then the slow reformation of material, and I quote, eventually gravity draws this stardust together to form planets like the Earth and everything on Earth, from rocks and stones, water, crystal, to all living things, like people, animals, insects, birds, fish, grass, trees, flowers, made of stardust. This is still his words. The universe gave birth to you, and you contain its essence within yourself. You might say that you are a form of the universe. You are a form that the universe is currently taking. You are a form that the universe is currently taking. Close quote. So not only can you trace back to Abraham Lincoln through time, you can trace back to an exploding star and make a scientifically sound claim that you are the form that the universe is currently taking. Now, reeling back in all the Bacon numbers and the Lincoln numbers, let's consider the U number, as in Y-O-U. The U, who is the center point. You are the foundational 0 number of your life, of the universe as expressed through you, with all your myriad ones connected to and passing through you, your family and your friends, neighbors and cashiers, plumbers and bakers and tax attorneys and chiropractors and garbage collectors, as well as every person present here in this sanctuary this morning. Everybody who plays a direct person-to-person role in your life. You realize, I trust, that this is where the of which you are a part portion of our 7th principle, that you are a vital connector in the interdependent web of all existence, that you are a node of connection, and radiating out from you are scores and hundreds and thousands of fellow creatures made of stardust. Now, how healthy are your connections? How healthy are your relations with all these creatures? All these creatures who are living within the first and primary radiance of your portion of the interdependent web of all existence. And please take that phrase as your own. primary radiance. Because everyone on this multidimensional and interdependent web practices primary radiance. And I think that's where respect, in the respect for the interdependent web of all existence, comes into play most intensely, within the direct influence of your primary radiance. Because for me, at least, the interdependent web of all existence, it is like this vast and flossy concept. It's like somebody coming toward me and saying that I have to respect the Milky Way. It's like, what? Whereas, if I take the interdependent web of all existence and I am guided to respect the primary radiance between me and everyone that I am connected to within that interdependent web, well, that's a different matter. And it gets tricky. It gets real tricky. Because they can't become number ones, or they can't not be a number one. Even my childhood friend, dear friend, who is a pandemic denier, that is a different matter all of a sudden. It's a difficult matter. Now, with apologies to those of us here this morning who may be pandemic deniers, one thing this global pandemic has shown us beyond the shadow of a doubt is just how interconnected our existence is on Earth. Because within months of its first appearance, a virus spread and mutated and brought the world to its knees. Now, math and 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon tells us that we are not too far removed from someone who died of COVID. R.I.P. John Prine. Now, armed with this fact, I hope that we are all being inspired to care for our particular portion of the interdependent web, to care for it physically, to care for it mentally, emotionally, and spiritually, by maintaining healthy relations with those plants and animals and people in our direct contact. In essence, making certain that our primary radiance is bright and beaming. And believe me, I get it. I totally get it. It is a difficult slog. Relationships have become strained from many external pressures extended over the past few years, from the murder of George Floyd and the racial issues that erupted, the pandemic, dysfunctional politics, all of our worries about climate change, and the weird embrace of conspiracy theories. Who knew that I had right-wing racists in my close-in family? Who knew that I had left-wing anti-vaxxers in my close-in family? Who knew that elders in my family think the presidential election of 2020 was tainted with quote-unquote shenanigans? Who knew? And I later learned that the word shenanigans was planted, maybe this is a conspiracy theory that I'm buying into, was planted by the conservative press. It's a great word, shenanigans. So math and 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon suggests that everyone in this congregation, you, we're all confronting similar issues. People who you love and respect and admire, holding different views and behaving in ways counter to your deeply held beliefs. And math and 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon tells us that this is happening in our country and right here in this congregation. These conflicts can fray nerves. They can lead to some very strained relationships. And I know firsthand. I was recently engaged in an email conversation, not within this congregation, email exchange about race and police violence in America with someone who I love dearly. I would donate a kidney for. And in this exchange, articles and links and opinions were just flying back and forth. We were volleying like it was some wicked Wimbledon match, with each player maneuvering to hit the ball back across the net and position ourselves for some kind of righteous spike where we could just end it once and for all. Game, set, match. And my blood was boiling. And after one particular exchange, I thought to myself, do I enjoy boiling my blood? Is this conversation, is this tennis match of links and articles and conversations and opinions, is this healthy? Is this exchange on the ground between two people who love each other, is this changing hearts and minds, or are we simply sharpening our bayonets for some kind of protracted trench warfare? And I use the violent image willfully. I did not feel like I was tending to my primary radiance very well. And again, I think that we are all doing this on some level. And because we are called by our religion to have respect for the interdependent web of all existence, I believe that respect means keeping our portion of the vast web in good working order, in good radiating order. I want to radiate. I want to be a positive force in this congregation, in my town, in my country, in the universe. And I want this religion to help me. And I want this religion to help you, and you, and you, and you. For all of us to radiate as best as we possibly can. And that radiating is brightest when we are in right relations with the number ones in our interconnecting sphere. And if everyone in this congregation is in right relations with everyone in their sphere, then this congregation becomes this bright, radiating force. We become a bright spot in the interdependent web of all existence, in the interconnected universe of stardust of which we are. And so on, and so on, and so on. And so to close, I want to share with you something called the Right Relations Covenant that is, when it is working as intended, is being practiced here at Quimper UU Fellowship. It's on our website. Incredibly powerful, very well thought of, beautiful, actually. It takes our original covenant statement of this congregation and it puts it into action. First, the covenant statement. And if you know the covenant statement by heart, you're absolutely welcome to join me. We are travelers. We meet for a moment in this sacred place to love, to share, to serve. Let us use compassion, curiosity, reverence, and respect while seeking our truths. In this way, we will support a just and joyful community, and this moment shall endure. Did you catch that? Did you catch the big joy of our responsive reading and our reading with the joyful community that is our covenant statement? Now, the Right Relations Covenant reads as follows. There's a little preamble that I'll read. The Right Relations Covenant is our promise of how we want to be together. And the B is capital B, capital E, how we want to be together. Because, as James Broughton reminded us this morning, this is it. Based on QUF's covenant statement, it expands upon how we agree to use compassion, curiosity, reverence, and respect while seeking our truths. And here we begin. We, the members of Quimper, Unitarian Universalist Fellowship, covenant to compassion. And that's the bold thing, and now there's a bullet-pointed list. Be kind. speak from the heart, communicate directly with the person or persons involved using honesty and care. Consider what is the most loving thing we can say or do right now. That's my favorite of all of these right relations reminders and guides. Consider what is the most loving thing we can do or say right now. Forgive ourselves and others when we don't live up to this covenant. Begin again in love and under curiosity. Be curious about the other person's point of view. Assume that others have good intentions. Be willing to admit that we are not always right. Long pause. Repeat that one. Be willing to admit that we are not always right. Be willing to let go of being in control of the situation. Reflect on how our own projections, past issues and wounds and tendencies color our stance. Be open to receiving feedback from others when the time is right. Also, a beautiful reminder, feedback when the time is right. Under reverence, honor our 7 principles. Appreciate and lift up the actions of others. Balance personal needs with the good of the whole. Honor the sacred space we have created as a community of fellow travelers. And under the headline, respect. Listen deeply so others can be heard. Avoid judging, blaming, shaming, or trying to fix others. Discern the difference between gossip and healthy communications. Respect confidentiality and personal boundaries. Trust that conflicts can be worked through rather than avoided. Respect each individual's unique learning style, social ability, life experience, gender identity, socioeconomic status, mental condition, race, age, personality, sexual orientation, theology, and politics. Now, I absolutely love that our small Unitarian Universalist congregation at the edge of a continent is working to put this covenant into practice. And I get it. This is not easy. Like most Unitarian Universalist congregations, ours contains factions, contains fishers, flower children and flamethrowers, free speech fundamentalists and social justice warriors who actively choose to pit themselves against each other. They're choosing. Now, the point is, we are all moving through the labyrinth in a sacred place that we are co-creating called sanctuary. And we are accompanied by harp music and farting. And each and all, we have to practice the spiritual discipline to respect and tend to our web of connections so that our values can spread as far and as fast as any virus you may have heard of. If we choose to not accept this challenge that within Unitarian Universalism generally and this congregation specifically, then to speak it plainly, we're hosed. We are simply aping the seized up and dysfunctional House of Representatives. And just remember, you have an Abraham Lincoln number of at least 6. Abraham Lincoln, who said, "When I do good, I feel good. When I do bad, I feel bad. That is my religion." So let's all go forth. Let's do good. Let's continue our new year with the intention to shine a bright primary radiance as best as our time and talent can allow. and let's tend with some deep love and affection to the interconnected web of all existence. Amen. Thank you for your attentive listening. Our closing song this morning is hymn number 1067, Mother Earth, Beloved Garden. Please stand as you're willing and able.
You ground our being, sage and thistle, grass and root, herbs to heal us, plants to feed us, land to till and tend and plow. With a pendant deep as midnight north, we ask you be here now. Father, ere your inspiration holds together all that lives, as we breathe, our minds see clearly, leading us to love and give. Raging whirlwind, whispering breezes, violent gale and gentle cloud. With a blade as sharp as morning east, we ask you be here now. Brother fire, great transformer, share the passion of the sun. In our hearts your warmth revives us, cooks our food and heats our homes. Flaming candle, blood within us, blazing desert will to grow. With a wand directing power south, we ask you be here now. Sister water ever flowing, ocean, river, pond and rain, drink we now and quench our thirsting, cleanse us as we begin again. Mist and ice, a host of changes, all that courage will allow. With a cup, the holy chalice quest, we ask you be here now. Love, a spirit, intuition, in the center of our souls. In your love we find relation, all connected we are whole. Timeless mystery, quiet conscience, deepest values voice inside. With a drum and with a cauldron, this we ask you be our guide.
One of the things I'd like to say is that I really leave the music and this service. They did an amazing job. Yeah, we can get around. Why not? So please join us in our chalice extinguishing words, which go as follows. We extinguish our flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, the fire of commitment, or the power of transformation. These we carry in our hearts until we're together again. So next week we're going to hear from the guest speaker, Daryl Thomas, who's speaking on transformation and justice. I hope you can join us. And with a callback to the sermon, specifically the one of the quotes, the lyric quotes, our postlude is going to be a video of Woodstock as performed by Crosby, Stills, Nash, and Young.
Well, I came upon the child of God. He was walking along the road, and By the time we got to Woodstock, we were half a million strong. And everywhere was a song and a celebration. And I dreamed I saw the bomb and death flames riding shotgun in the sky, turning